and let us all do we can to build a better future.
And this is a story that broke 6 days ago, but I do want to just address before we continue on a little bit further. But Malcolm X's daughter, about 12 hours ago, was recently found passed away. And what's interesting enough is that a few days ago, the two men that were convicted of killing civil rights leader Malcolm X were exonerated in court. And I think it's very important that we covered this issue because Malcolm X was a very pivotal person in the civil rights movement, in American history. His videos, his commentary on the political environment in the 1960s, and
Martin Luther King to make his point stronger because of his separate movement.
Yeah, and also even too on how what he has done to actually, again, some of his words are still relevant in today's political environment. So just continue on. Two of the three men convicted of killing the civil rights activist Malcolm X were exonerated in a Manhattan court Thursday. A judge dismissed the convictions of Muhammad Aziz and Akhila Islam after a 22-month investigation revealed new evidence of the men's innocence. The judge determined that authorities withheld some evidence that might have cleared them during the investigation.
Police withholding evidence? I thought they were the law breakers. I mean, makers enforcers that we deserved. I guess.
Continuing on, the event that has brought us to court today should never have occurred, said Aziz told the court, according to the Associated Press. I'm an 83-year-old man who was victimized by the criminal justice system. District Attorney Cy Vance and lawyers representing the two men announced Wednesday they would ask the court to vacate the wrongful convictions of Aziz and Islam, a move that debunks the official account about the assassination of the fiery orator who was murdered on stage in 1965 in a hail of bullets in front of hundreds of people, including his daughters and pregnant wife. Very unfortunate. Aziz and Islam were members of the Nation of Islam and were sentenced to a life in prison a year later alongside Mujahid Abdul Halim, and then was known as Tabligh Khair and Thomas Hagen. While Halim confessed murder during the trial, he testified that neither Azim nor Islam was involved, but he declined to name the men who had joined him in the attack. Meanwhile, Islam, then known as Thomas 15X Johnson, and Aziz, then known as Norman 3X Butler, always maintained their innocence. So eventually, Halim gave the names of four men who he said were his accomplices in 1978, but his testimony failed to persuade officials to reopen the investigation of the murder, and a judge rejected a motion to vacate the convictions. So again, we've seen this before. But again, the fact that this wasn't really looked into further really says about the state of how, especially law enforcement and our judicial system, viewed Malcolm X. Because again, of course, Malcolm X was assassinated. And apparently, of course, everyone's what was expected was, okay, well, who killed him? Who was part of it? Mm-hmm. But then there was no further investigation.
Well, again, it's just like, the very American way. Just a bunch of black people, throw them in jail. We'll say we got this thing covered.
Now, there's another thing, too, I want to read from the article. Suspicion and speculation that the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the New York Police Department had mishandled the case. Are you surprised? Deliberately withholding or ignoring information that would have ensured these two men's freedoms, and has persisted for more than half a century. And in 2020, a documentary called "Who Killed Malcolm X" raised a slew of new questions, ultimately promoting Vance to launch a new investigation.
I'm going to translate that a little bit, and you guys can tell me in the comments if you think I'm off base on this. My translation is, a bunch of younger, generally Caucasian people probably saw this documentary and like, hey, I think that something should be done about this. And now that it's not a bunch of older civil rights people doing it, they're like, okay, we'll look into it.
Now, looking into this even further, and this is something that is unfortunate, Malika Sabaz, a daughter of Malcolm X, was found dead in her Brooklyn home Monday, according to police. Authorities say that the 56-year-old Shabazz was found just after 4 p.m. inside of her Midwood home on East 28th Street by her daughter. The death does not appear suspicious, and Police Commissioner Dermot Shea said she had been ill for some time, and some of her family members were indicating that she was dealing with food poisoning at the time. It's just very interesting because, again, after seeing this case reopened, as well as these two men being exonerated, there is, of course, on social media right now, people kind of raising up questions about, well, what really happened? This seems all too convenient. Now, of course, again, a real investigation needs to take place. Again, authorities are still gathering all the information, but again,
I don't know. I feel like this is way too much speculation than we're used to using on the show. It seems the family was like, she was dealing with food poisoning. Look, it's like, give me something to connect the two, but I can't see a reason that after this happened, this event, now is the time for like the New York police to assassinate someone. I don't know. I feel like that's a little much. I feel like they go for other things anyway, and that's the federal government would do other things anyway. I think that these are just coincidental, but they're happening. But people are, they happen close together.
I like to add on to this though. Condolences though towards the family.
Yeah,
members.
of course.
And throughout all social media, a lot of people are saying condolences towards the family, and of course,
I just feel like these should be separate stories. That's my personal take.
Agreed, but I think the fact that we do need to talk about what happened to these two men, how they were exonerated, and how the FBI
I agree. That's a big story.
That is something phenomenally important. And of course, the article that did talk about her passing away did bring in the fact of how these two men were also exonerated as well. But I think with this day and age of social media, there is a lot of cross connections, and of course, with so much that is happening and everything that we've covered in the past, I think it's only fair that we do kind of talk about this story, but not to the point where, this is what happened.
I'm personally against having these combined anyway. We just don't know, and it doesn't seem to be the MO of when attacks would happen. I don't know. I feel like these are separate stories to me. I feel like on one hand, this is a condolences for Malcolm X's family, and really sorry that someone died. It's just, I think, 39. And separately, look, these people that this feels like two different stories to me that shouldn't have been combined. Personally.